What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fryar Place, where the conversations are fire. I am Irving Fryar, your host here at the Fryar Place. Y'all come on in the room. I see a few of you have already logged in. Announce yourself, please. Let me know who's watching right now. Got a great, awesome guest. You know, sometimes things happen at the last minute, and I was able to connect with this young lady on last night, and she agreed to come on, and you're in for a treat today, as usual. I don't mess around, y'all. I don't know why y'all sleep on the Fryar Place. I don't know why you guys think I'm messing around. I know people. Yes, I do. And I have some great people as guests who have great stories, and today is going to be a conversation that is nothing less than fire. So y'all come on in the room. Who's with me right now? Announce yourself, say hi, say bye, say hello, say something, say boo. Just let me know. And I know it takes a second when you put the comments in, when you type them in. It takes a second for me to see them. But y'all come on in the room. It's going to be a great time today. But before I bring our guest on today, I want to give you just a little snippet of how much of a beast this young lady is. She is a beast. I hope she doesn't mind me calling her a beast. She's a beast and then some. She is awesome. Check her out. Check her out.
And you can see her trademark pink bow in her hair, wears it to show women can be feminine and strong. And Maggi Thorne is both of those.
You better believe it, and just crush the floating steps.
Was a track star at the University of Nebraska, teammates with Jesse Graff, ready to take on the double twister.
Get up high, real big swing. A little twisted.
You know, the one thing we notice about Maggi Thorne is every single year we've seen her get better and better, Matt.
Ooh, a little shaky, but makes the catch.
Maggi is 5'8", one of the taller women, but she's struggling with her swing.
Her hips seem to be a little out of control.
It's all about getting that knee up, turn around.
Having trouble building on momentum.
Ooh.
And she's using up a lot of energy, and this could hurt her farther down the course.
Trust it, let go right here. Yes! Nice.
Collapses down.
And I think that really took a lot out of her. She's moving very slowly to the next obstacle.
Remember, the top 5 women move on to the city finals. If she can get past this ring jump, she'll be in good shape, but no woman has done it yet.
Watch it on full display. You want to see good upper body strength?
I like this reverse approach, Akbar.
Skipped a couple right there.
And she went with the switch grip here. Much better control, I think, when you have that backwards approach. Much more able to get that ring up.
Well, and the other thing is you also recruit other muscles as well, so that allows you to be a little bit more efficient.
Barclay Stockett shouting out advice.
And you can see it's all about timing, and you can't get it when you are descending forward.
Doing the Vince Carter to get some rest. I like it.
Well, we talked about it. Used up so much energy on the previous obstacle. Now her arms are spent, and she's hung up on that 8-inch peg.
Well, that's a smart move to generate some rest right there. Look at that.
Oh, she is really fighting with that. She's fighting.
Well, no woman has gotten past this obstacle tonight, including Maggi Thorne. The kid's disappointed. Well, we're going to have to wait and see, but she still has a shot to be in the women's top 5.
On the double twister, Maggi burned a lot of energy with those extra swings. So when it came time to muscle through the ring jump, she just ran out of gas.
Ladies and gentlemen, from brunette to blonde, let's welcome Maggi Thorne to the show. What's going on, Maggi?
Dr. Irving Fryar. Hello. You know, I heard blondes had more fun. It's very true. So.
I'm not going to ask. We're not going to go there. Listen, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing. We just talked last night through our mutual friend, Ricky Simmons, who got you on the show for me. And it's just, and I'll see you next week. I'll see you next Thursday. We'll be in Nebraska. But thank you so much for coming on today. When you see that video, and I got that off of YouTube, when you watch that, how does that make you feel? Do you go back to what you were feeling? Because I know, listen, I know your arms were getting tired. I do just a little bit of CrossFit training. I'm 60. I'll be 61 next week. I do a little bit of CrossFit training, and listen, I know there was some burning going on in your body while you were doing it. What kind of thoughts do you have when you see yourself doing that?
You know, it's interesting going back. Actually, my first memory was at Viking Stadium, which I actually got to go run around in because security was like, "Oh, Ninja Warriors here," and they weren't really watching anything. So I actually went into the locker room and put on some of the Minnesota Vikings.
Get out of here!
I promise. I ran around like.
Whose uniform did you put on? Whose uniform did you put on?
I don't even know, but someone else walked in and I went.
Uh-oh.
You know, it's interesting because the announcers, they go, "Oh, those kids are so disappointed." And I'm like, I don't think my kids are disappointed. In their mind, they're always like, "Yeah, Mom," you know.
Yeah, I didn't like that when he said that either, but I was pressed for time to try to find the other one and convert it so I could use it. So I had to use that one. And I apologize, but he was wrong. Yeah, the kids aren't. Listen, I'm just totally impressed. I am honored. You're not a former Cornhusker, once a Cornhusker, always a Cornhusker. So you are my sister. We come from the same school. Great athlete. You ran track hurdles at the University of Nebraska, correct? Well, my wife at the time, my wife now, married. This is my second marriage, but my wife was a former hurdler. So got something in common here. You'll see her next week as well. National motivational speaker, 7-time competitor for the American, that's what you were watching earlier, y'all. The American Ninja Warrior. Go ahead, girl. American Ninja Warrior, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14. Good gosh. Former 2014 Mrs. International. Wow. You're just all over the place. All over the place. So where do we start? I read that you were born in California. Yep. Is that correct? Okay, you were born, but I could not find, I see you, Vinny, and I see you, Hope. We got a few people on right now. I see some other people on too, but you have not announced yourself. So let us know who you are. If you have any questions for Maggi, throw a Q up, a semicolon, and put it in the comments, and we will address it a little bit later on. But I couldn't find out anywhere online where you grew up necessarily and how you got to Lincoln, Nebraska. So tell the people about your upbringing and in that, how you got to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, I know you're an East Coast boy. So I'm a San Diego girl through and through, always had the beach board in my car. You know, I grew up in a low-income household, and I heard a little bit about your story, and it was interesting. I didn't know necessarily a ton about you, so I was like, I better know a little bit. I've always heard about you. Hey, I'll be honest, transparent person. I'll answer any question also. But
we're the same. We have that in common. We have that in common. Yeah, that's
My
good.
house was chaos, and both my brothers were high school dropouts. They're in and out of jail. And when I was 12 years old, that was the first time when I thought, what is life really even for? I found myself trying to read the Sunday comics, and they weren't even funny. And
Wow.
that at 12 was something that was pretty shocking. So I wasn't very hopeful for my future. I was bullied and picked on, and I didn't play sports at all growing up. We couldn't afford it. And it was a teacher in high school who thought I looked fast in PE. She told the track team, and I got a letter to come try out for track. I mean, I couldn't even afford running shoes. I showed up,
Wow.
and the coach said, "Hey, is there anything you want to do?" I had this one really great memory. I had very few positive memories of my childhood, but one I did have was of my brothers at a track where we were jumping over things. Lo and
Hmm.
behold, those were called hurdles, which I didn't know at the time. And, to me, they're just sticks and you turn left. That's all I knew. And I three-stepped my very first time and went
Wow.
on to become the number one runner in California. And
Get out of here.
I was California state champion in the hurdles. I didn't start hurdling until I was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
And just Nebraska I got picked up on their radar. And I think what picked me up, so I did a heptathlon once for
Hmm.
fun,
Hmm.
and I ended up winning, which in California, that's a big deal.
Right. Right.
So my recruiting stock started to get raised. I actually did have to go to JUCO first as well, because in high school, I didn't have academic support. That's
Okay.
not what was pushed
Hmm.
at my house and just what life was like there. So I had a 1.69, even though I was a stellar athlete. So I am a big push for academics, first
Yes.
person in my family ever to graduate from college. I know you have a similar experience. But when Nebraska came up on my radar, my coach said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not like you would go to Nebraska anyways." And that little 19-year-old, I was like, "What?
Did
Well,
you
I'm
go
gonna
back and say something to him after you saw in Nebraska?
yeah." So
How
it
you like
actually,
me now?
yeah, motivated me to go to Nebraska because I was like, "Oh yeah, well I'm gonna go on my." And it was interesting. All of the California schools actually didn't recruit me very well because nobody thought I would ever leave. Through and through, like low scholarship offers.
Wow.
Yet here I am, Ball State, Texas, North Carolina are
Wow.
great offers all over the country. But I'll just tell you, no one thought I would ever leave. And when I showed up in Nebraska, first of all, it was the first time I ever saw a real thunderstorm. I was like, oh my gosh, is the world ending? No, it's Nebraska. Uh, but Dennis LeBlanc, who is
Okay.
in the Student Life Center, said, "Hi, how are you?" And then he stopped. And I was like, "You care." Californians are like, "Hey, how are you?" And they blow
Keep
past.
on going. That's right. Yeah. Big city.
Yeah. And when he stopped, and then later he remembered parts and pieces of me, and it
Wow.
was so impactful, and I felt cared for. And then I saw the academic support, and I was like, Lord knows I need that. For all the other dumb decisions I made, I did want to graduate. That was just something that was important to me.
Hmm.
And so I chose Nebraska. I got a full ride, and during my JUCO time, was able to turn my GPA around to, I mean, not great, but 3.96. So that
Yeah.
was something still
Yeah.
to stand for. And I had to learn how to study, and I had to be in the right environment. I had to have
Right.
support
Right.
from anyone
Right.
else.
That's our, and our story kind of is similar. I mean, I went to Nebraska out of New Jersey because Mike and I grew up together. I lived right next door to his grandmother, and we played ball against each other growing up. And I really didn't want to go to college. I had enough of school. By the time I graduated out of high school, I got decent grades because if I didn't, my mother would kill me. So I was more scared of my mother than anything in the world. I was more afraid of my mother than I was my father. And if I didn't get good grades, the grades I was supposed to get, she was going to kill me. So I was academically sound, but I had had enough of school. Mike and I started being recruited by the same schools. And Mike boiled it down to two schools. And that's what I told all the recruiters. Listen, wherever Mike goes is where I'm going. But when Tom Osborne came to the house, he made the difference in my
Oh,
eyes and in my mother's eyes because he just made me feel like if something went wrong, I would be taken care of. He really did. He made it personal. He made it seem just like you said that they cared, And obviously they emphasized the academics of it. We had Ursula Walsh at the time who was there. She just recently passed away, I think a year or so ago, but she was our academic counselor or guidance counselor, and made sure that we did what we're supposed to do. But I didn't graduate until after 13 years after I got out of Nebraska, and I went to seminary and used those credits to graduate from seminary. But yeah, we have a similar story. It's Nebraska. I tell my wife all the time, if the bottom falls out, we're going to Nebraska. So Maggie, if you see me in Nebraska, you know the bottom fell out. You see me living in Nebraska, it's because the bottom fell out in New Jersey. But like the song says, there is no place like Nebraska. There is no place like Nebraska. So how did you go? I mean, yeah, you were a great athlete, hurdler at Nebraska. But man, when did you make, and excuse me, I'm just talking this athletic, I say, but man, you know, it's athletic stuff.
No,
Yeah. When did you make the transition to this Ninja Warrior stuff? And what happened? Did somebody do something wrong to you or what?
First of all, to answer that, plenty of people. But second, what's your reaction to it? You're either going to have opposition, right? Or you're going to see opportunity. And I've always tried to approach life with opportunity. I mean, I could have said, well, there's no way I can ever do anything. Look at what my family is. Look at this or that. And it was actually just implanted in me. Like, you know, I was made a long time ago to do all these things, to do the good works. And so that piece of it was, I can see opportunity. And even without little resources, this is where you can look at chaos, you can look at your child, you can look at whatever happens, you can say, I am so grateful. Yes, I can thrive in a chaotic environment. Yes, I've learned to survive. And where you can start to look back at the past and truly say thank you. And because of that, you said, oh my gosh, you've done so many different things. And that's because I can survive different circumstances. I can see through the mess or whatever that looks like. And that's how I've been shaped. So before Ninja Warrior, I don't know if you know this, I actually worked for Tom Osborne.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I worked for Nebraska Athletics for 10 years.
Nice.
I started that job as a student worker picking up trash. Do you remember when they did actually the major award winners display and all the recruiting enhancements?
Yes.
I designed that and built it.
Okay. Wow.
I used to design, manage, and build every facility that I used to clean for Nebraska Athletics. I did $340 million in projects over 10 years.
How much of that did you get?
No, well, remember, I worked for the university.
Yeah, I know.
It's basically like the offering jar. So,
Yeah.
you know, and something pivotal during that time, I remember asking Tom when I was under Boyd Epley first. Actually, Boyd Epley is the reason that I worked for Nebraska Athletics. He gave me an opportunity. He didn't have to, but he saw something in me, just like that teacher did, just like I try to see in other people and give them opportunity as well. And he'd give me a task with no direction.
Wow.
And say, this is what I need you to do. So I went from someone who had a bachelor's degree in community health, who thought I was going to live my life out in sweatpants and tank top. And he did. He asked me, he said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I don't know, but I know one thing for sure, Boyd. I don't want to be in a suit and I don't want to be in an office. And I spent the next 10 years in a suit, in an office, and essentially kind of got discipled in business by Boyd Epley and taught me everything Husker and what it means to do business and how it is for the Nebraska way. Even I learned so much from him. And I competed for my job with a gentleman who had a master's degree in architecture, and I had a bachelor's degree in community health. But the thing is when you know how to compete and you're in the right environment, no matter what it is, you know how to show up. That's what I did every day. And that's what, even with all the education that gentleman had, is I knew how to show up and be ready and be prepared. And I took those athletic skills and I've translated it into every single thing I do now. It's the same principles, which is what? Small habits of discipline. Everything adds up. And people can say, well, you want to go for success? And I'm like, no, it's just, I'm a hard worker and everything eventually adds up. So you're seeing the results. That doesn't mean that was the result I was going for.
Right.
But I love to work hard. I love to stay focused. That's my DNA. So you're just seeing the fruits of everything I'm constantly planting. And lo and behold, that's kind of how Ninja Warrior came around. So my brother died by suicide in 2005. And then my best friend died by suicide in 2011. And the day of her funeral, I felt that God called me to build people and not buildings. And I left Nebraska athletics.
Wow.
Nobody thought I would ever leave. I had administrators pull me in and tell me I was ruining my life. They said, "Look at what you've been given. You used to clean bleachers. You were essentially a custodian." And I mean, I moved up very quickly in
Hmm.
Nebraska athletics, pulled into the table of senior administrators, put in charge of projects ahead of senior. I mean, there was no reason, and that was Tom,
Hmm.
really. And people would say, "Who in charge?" And Tom would say, "Maggie." And
Maggie's
that's when
in
I,
charge.
oh my gosh, this is how people run through a wall for him, right?
Right.
Like, you don't deserve it, yet he's trusted you, and that's everything.
Hmm.
And so I left and went out into the unknown to become a professional athlete in my mid 30s after having three kids, because that's what everybody does, right? You
No.
know,
No. Only Maggie does that.
so
Only Maggie Thorne.
I know. I got into amateur boxing, and I was actually a Midwest Golden Gloves champion. And my
You can
husband is,
box too? My
I,
goodness. I saw something about you being a boxing trainer, but I didn't know, how much of it you had delved into or how long you had stayed there. My gosh. Well, obviously you didn't get hit at all because you're a beautiful lady. So you didn't get hit at all. You're
I
good at making a miss.
You know, I actually was kind of bad in the sense that I wasn't afraid to take hits. And my
Hmm.
coach, Cruz Quintana, I was Cruz's bruiser, was like, "Maggie, the point of it is to not get hit." And I was like, "But it doesn't bother me." And he's like, you know, like, "You're doing this all wrong." So, uh, and part of that was just, a bit of some challenges I've had over my life. Like, I've
I was going to
experienced.
say, I was going to ask you that because I'm hearing or I'm sensing, you had a couple. Richard Melton, I see you, bro. God bless you. Thanks for being in today. Maggie says hi. Um, I'm hearing in an undertow, you got the death of your brother, your death by suicide, and suicide of your friend. And then you mentioned it briefly, your upbringing, you had a lot of people or a lot of things that had a negative impact or that were negative things in terms of energy towards you. What were some of those things? Tell us about your upbringing, some of those challenges that you had, some things you had to overcome that kind of helped push you to become the woman that you became, not just as a mother, not just as an athlete, not just as a businesswoman, but the woman you are today.
You know, it was interesting growing up. We lived in a multi-family home. So I grew up with a girl and, shared a room with someone that wasn't my sister. And I didn't know any different at the time, but I also remember thinking about how my parents used their resources, that by the time they spent X on this thing that they did, that could have really funded my college, right? Or the amount of time that my dad was always working in several jobs, and just not really being present, and what the impact that had
Mhm.
on my life. And then even healthy relationships, understanding what a healthy relationship was. I didn't get to witness that. Didn't get to witness a healthy relationship, and that had a tremendous impact.
Mhm.
And I did go from someone, I mean, I've been locked in a locker. I grew up in my brother's hand me down clothes. So I was constantly teased and picked on. And I also didn't have a compass of my faith. And so when all of a sudden I hit high school and I had a lot of notoriety, I mean, here I am all of a sudden the number one runner in California. I'm Pepsi Athlete of the Year, X, Y, and Z. I was Teen Miss San Diego, and I didn't know what to do with it. And it didn't have a purpose tied
Mhm.
to it yet. And so that's all I had, was all these things. And I tried to, in high school, just become all of it and do everything. And I was president of every club and captain of every team.
Mhm.
And again, though, that's where it was wrapped. And then when I was about 18, I got into a really abusive relationship, and I was actually just embarrassed. And it's a weird thing to say, but here you are, you're supposed to be this strong person. It can be very challenging, and you always think on the outset, I would never tolerate anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
No way. If you've never experienced it and you have judgment on other people, like how can they just not leave, or what does that look like? And I didn't know what to do. And I actually did go to my parents and share what was happening. And they said, well, let's just keep this in the family. And that was pretty damaging for me, especially my dad was actually a police officer. And so thinking back to the responsibility he had for protection. And I did end up in the hospital, and the person I was in the relationship with, had been arrested multiple times for assault on me. But ultimately, the detective would say, well, do you really want to file these charges? Do you know what this will do to his life? And you have guilt and you don't know how to get out of it.
Wow.
And even now, I just want to caution that I think it's a very sensitive subject, and to find the right person to share with and the right counselor. And it's nothing to be ashamed about if you're experiencing it, or if you haven't figured out how to get to a safe place yet. And I just didn't have that kind of support in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska was actually a piece of that. And it was a piece of why I didn't want to stay in California, that it just wasn't a healthy place. And I knew that. I think if I'm going to survive this life, this world, I believe I have to leave. And that went into Nebraska on top of all the other reasons I loved
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that time when I did step into becoming a boxer that my coach was like,
Were you
fight.
pretending you were hitting? Were you pretending? Did you put that face of your former relationship on the person you were boxing and pretend you were taking it back, revenge?
I didn't want to be scared anymore. I
Right,
wanted to know how to step in the ring
right.
and fight back for life.
Mm.
And so boxing was actually really personal for me. And a lot of people didn't understand it. And they would say, they're like, no, don't mess up your face. I'm like, if that's why you're my friend, we've got issues. But I loved it because a lot of people, they're never willing, no matter what it is, fear, whatever that is, you can be locked into it and you don't want
Mm.
to step into the ring, and you're not willing to metaphorically um, take some hits, or fight. You have to be willing to fight for something, whatever that is, which means there's going to be problems with progress. If you're having problems, there's a good chance somewhere in your life you're having progress. So
Mm-hmm.
perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so yeah, that was tied to it, and that was a longer answer than you
No, no,
asked.
that
But
was a great answer. That's what I want. I want to hear your heart. I want to hear you are Rodney Lewis, Keenan Harmon. They're all in the house. Say hi, Maggie. Now, Rodney Lewis played with me, Cornhuskers, back when I was at the school. So, Rodney, we're talking to Maggie Thorne here is a former Cornhusker. Actually, she still is a Cornhusker. Once a Cornhusker, always a Cornhusker. So, no, I want to hear your heart because, okay, you go into boxing and you're boxing for a while. Okay, Richard Melton has a question. He says, how many weeks and how grueling was your training to be not one, but 7 times a Ninja Warrior? I'm getting to that, Richard. Hold on a second, all right? Because that's exactly what I was going to ask. You go into boxing, but this whole Ninja Warrior stuff is a whole different level of training. Like I said, I've done a little bit of CrossFit training, and I love it. But the stuff you do, swinging and jumping and climbing and swinging some more and holding on, it's just a whole nother level. And like you said, you didn't start until you were in your 30s. You didn't start doing that until you were in your 30s. So what pushed you to go beyond where you were in terms of the physical capabilities that you already knew you had, but you were looking to enhance?
I'll tell you right now, my number one driver is I wanted a platform to advocate from, and that fueled a lot of everything that was ahead. And that was a huge learning curve. I was a lower body athlete, being a runner. I
Right.
mean, I didn't need to do pull-ups. I'm not doing push-ups. It's minimal upper body training. All I do, I spent 10 years turning left and jumping. So my learning curve into American Ninja Warrior was big. And my first year I did it, I actually failed miserably. I
Wow.
fell on the first obstacle. They had the camera, you fell. How does it feel? Amazing. What do you
We
want me to
watch those things, and yeah, they don't make it very fun when you're not good at it.
What happened is, first of all, I came out of it positive. I was like, you know what? It's okay. I fell. I tried.
Hmm.
Because most people would be afraid of that moment of
That's right.
falling in the water and then having it shared literally with the world, right? Like everybody gets to see. I mean, and you did that day in,
Yeah.
day out on the
Yep.
field and
Yep.
people's
Nothing
very
nothing more embarrassing than dropping a ball in front of the whole world. Nothing more embarrassing.
everyone's very strong opinions, I'm sure, on it.
Oh, for
So
years later, I still get I dropped the ball in the Orange Bowl. What was that, 30 years ago? And I still get people you dropped that ball on purpose. Somebody paid you to drop that ball. No, you think I did that on purpose? For real?
do you respond? Do you ever respond with "Thank you for your passion for Nebraska"?
No, I'm going to respond like that from now on. But no, I have a hard time not taking it personal. I'm a big emotional type of person. I get real
Yep.
emotional. So when I get emotional, I've learned when I get emotional now just to be quiet. Before I would say things or do things when I was younger out of emotions. But now when I sense, because I still haven't been able to tame the emotions, I just don't respond anymore. So when I get emotional, I just get quiet until I can respond with a comment or an action that is positive and that makes sense. So that's just me. I'm still, like we said, I'm saved, but that cat's still in there. When God saves us, He gives us His Holy Spirit, and we have a dispensation of holiness in us now. But He does not remove our sin nature, so that cat's still there. He's
I
still in
heard,
there.
I heard part of your podcast talking about that with OJ, where you said, "Yeah, I'm saved. I won't get into a brawl anymore." And I was listening to it, and I was like, "Well, I love Jesus, but I'd also throw down."
Yeah.
So, what?
Look, Peter threw down. Then Peter pulled that sword out. Listen, what's up, Jesus? Let's get this thing started.
Yeah, it was great listening to it. No, I try to interact with those emotions anytime. I mean, I've been on global television. My story that aired was actually about my divorce. And
Mhm.
if you want to get people really upset with you, just talk about that.
Or
And
or
I'm
or or just get divorced. I'm divorced. If you want to get people upset with you, get divorced. Go through a divorce because people feel, this is just my opinion through my experience. You may agree, you may not agree. Um, People feel as though they have to take a side, and they do. They choose a side,
Mhm.
and to me, it's just it brings division. All a divorce. Nobody wins the divorce except the only ones that win are the attorneys. That's it. Everybody else that's connected to it directly or indirectly loses. Period.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry for your experience with that.
Well, me too for you. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Then there's the court of public opinion, which is wonderful. I've tried to, just by way of, I mean, I would get horrific emails,
Hmm.
from anonymous, and I wanted to appreciate someone's voice because I know the power in it, whether I agree with it or not. But the
Right.
fact that we can still have that freedom, I don't want to take it for granted. And this isn't a pie in the sky point of view, but this is a part of me that, I mean, I just was very publicly ridiculed and also celebrated for something
Hmm.
that happened on the airline with Southwest because a flight attendant told me to cover up. And I was like, why are you telling me to cover up? I'm wearing a tank top and high waisted pants, and it was in front of everyone. And it turned into this whole thing that ended up on like Inside Edition. And uh, it was interesting how quickly men all of a sudden were experts on ladies wear
Mm.
and how people, find your number on the internet. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and I was like, first of all, it opened my eyes to what women are still facing
Right.
or any group. Any injustice that we're unaware of and we encounter it, we're more aware. And thank you for that. But two, I was like, really? 2023? Okay, well, now I'm up to speed on 2023. But I just want to interact with it that way because someone's voice matters. And when I worked for Nebraska Athletics, some members on my team were like, I can't handle so-and-so coach, or I can't handle Bo Pelini. And I was like, oh, Bo Pelini. I'll get yelled at by Bo Pelini. Like, I would rather have a passionate coach
Right.
frustrated because this represents they care about their program. And I want that coach for Nebraska or whoever it is than anyone else. The passive person, the quiet person, are they doing the best for their student athletes? Are they doing the best for their community? Now there's different ways about that, right? And it's imperfect, but I'm all for advocacy. So I think we got off topic.
No. This is your show, and Ricky said he's going to have you on his show twice, so you definitely coming back on my show later on. So we won't cover everything today, but what I do want you to talk about, and I read that in 2013, you were second at the world's toughest mudder running. You ran 75 miles. And you completed 330 obstacles in 24 hours. What is wrong with you?
What is right with me?
Did you run 75 miles?
I did. So I'm kind of the person who I will never start with low-hanging fruit. Like
Okay.
if there's the opportunity for all of a sudden for me to become president of the United States, I would say yes.
Well, I would
And
too.
I would
I would too.
I wouldn't say, well, I have to do X, Y, and Z first. So I had heard about the race. I did one 8-mile race once. And then I heard about the world's toughest mudder. And I thought, I should try that. I wonder what's possible. Like I'm so curious about what if and pushing my limits and what are we capable of, and not enough people do it, and we can do more. And it's literally just like, okay, for I am God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, do good works which he prepared in advance for me to do. So all these things in my life, whether or not I knew it, prepared me to suffer immeasurably.
I was gonna say,
And
how long did it take you to run 75 miles?
well, you only have 24 hours. So in 24 hours, you had to do as many 5-mile laps as you could. And for the first, like from 10 until 3 o'clock, you start at 10 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 to 3, you have one helper. And then you're on your own. You can't listen to music, nothing else. And actually, it was in New Jersey in November, which you can imagine, it was very cold. My whole goal, honestly, Irving, my whole goal was if I can show up and put one foot in front of the other for 24 hours, I wonder what's possible. What if that's all?
Look, that's life. If I can show up and put, because all we have is today. All we have is right now. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow hasn't even taken place yet. So don't even worry about tomorrow, the Bible says, because first of all, we may not even get there. All we have is right now.
Worry about itself.
So if I can show up right now and put one foot in front of the other today,
Yep.
and let's see how far I can go. Let's see what I can accomplish. And if you've never done that before, those of you who are listening or who will listen to this, why don't you try that? One day at a time. Why don't you continue to try to put one foot, continue to move forward, continue to try to put one foot in front of the other for 24 hours and see what you accomplish. I bet you'll accomplish more than you ever thought you'd ever accomplish in your life in one day. That's life right there. That's outstanding. I love that. I love that.
Maybe it's German. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Talk about because all this training, all this success, all of these accomplishments you made, whether they were psychological, emotional, you had all of that stuff you had to deal with, the physical accomplishments. You suffered, you had an injury. Was it TBI?
Yep, a TBI, aka concussion, aka
Traumatic brain injury. Yeah.
pat on the back and go back into the game, right?
Yeah, what you were doing? You were training when that happened, or
You can watch it on YouTube when it
hmm
happened. It's out there. I fell on the show. I face planted on an obstacle that was a piece of steel covered for traction, not padding. And I just tripped. And the doctors, the way they equated it, it's like being in a car accident without an airbag, or if you were to fall on a bike without a helmet. And that was the equivalent of the impact. So my body shifted 2 inches, which I'm still like off centered. The whole right side of my face went numb. I almost bit through my tongue, couldn't feel my lips, my tongue, or most of my right arm for about 6 months. And I couldn't turn my head. Like I can turn it now, but I couldn't turn it more than that. And my eyes stopped communicating. My speech and cognitive were affected. So I had a stutter for a little bit. And I was someone who'd gone from being this world's toughest mudder, you're in barbed wire and like you're in a wetsuit for 24 hours, so use your own imagination. Like the gross, like it's like
hmm
being in the military to this, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't push past this pain. I couldn't push out of this injury. And all of us, if you're an athlete or a high level athlete or even a professional athlete, at some point you've played with an injury or operated under an injury. Not saying I recommend it, but this was something that I couldn't, no matter what I physically did, because it was my brain. And I ended up spending a year in outpatient at Madonna Rehabilitation, about 20 hours a week with 6 different specialists to come back to life. My goal actually wasn't even to come back to sports. Now I was doing life. My first priority was my kids, being a single parent. Like if I can function, take care of my kids, that's it. Any contracts I had for work, and I actually said no to anything and everything else. So it was also a very isolating time. I have no family in Nebraska. I was on my own. I actually had someone who messaged to show up to my appointments as a friend and for support, and that was phenomenal. But then it was just this journey of being stopped. And it was actually probably one of the best gifts God gave me, because he said, "Stop. I have been trying to heal you for so long. And now that you're actually stopped, like I lost my vision. I went blind. I literally went blind one day. And that's when he said, now that you can't see, I need you to see. And I want to heal you."
yes,
Everything, childhood, early 20s, BC, uh, I was going so fast
hmm
at life and everything else that I didn't heal. So even though I was having this other injury, I had a bigger injury that was happening, that he loved me too much to let me keep suffering. So it's one of those things where like, God, please heal me. And then like you go do your own thing. And so it was. And for my friends who were like, how could God love you if this is what happens? I'm like, it's because he does.
say it
100%.
again. Say it again.
It's because he does.
Listen, he had to take away your sight so you could see him.
Yep.
And people should understand that, because we walk by faith. We don't walk by sight. And the world, we respond to the world based on what we see and the images that are created before our eyes. The children of Israel, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments for the first time, they were worshiping a graven image, something they could see. And they weren't worshiping the one and only true living God like they should have been. And they were distracted by sight. And you have been distracted by, like all of us are, distracted by sight. And God had to put you in a box, just like he put me in a box, to get us to see him for who he really is and truly is. And now you see him because of what you went through. You see him and know him in a way that you never would have seen him or known him had you not gone through that difficulty.
My youngest, we used to love to do these avocado toast and art Wednesday mornings. And here she is, this little, I think she was like 8 or 9 at the time. And my counselor during the time was like, helping me emotionally recover and was like, draw how you feel, and okay. I drew like a cage and she comes over and she draws a key and she looks at me and she goes, the key's already there for you. He has it. And I was like, what? And then she like went back to her drawing. I was like, all right, little prophetess, like what'd you just say? Like what'd you draw? Like what's happening? Uh, and it was so interesting along the way, just the different ways he would work. And I had this vision of actually being in a pit. And that's what I felt like at the time was how can I get out? And that's the only thing I was trying to see is I just want to get out. I just want to get out. And it wasn't until that day I went blind and he said, it's not about getting out. Let me in. And who will you be in this moment? There's no going back. It's from here forward. So every year I do a verse on my shirts, and it was Romans 10, 12, 1 through 2, present your bodies as
Living
living
sacrifice. Yeah. Holy acceptable.
the renewing of your mind. Now, God had told me that 4 weeks before I ran, and I changed it. And so that was my verse for that year. And after I fell, I was like, I didn't really mean present my body as a holy and living sacrifice. Like,
Yeah.
what,
Yes, you did.
like, what is this? Well, but that's when I was just angry and frustrated because I couldn't fix it, right? Like I was so used to the ability I could fix things in construction. I could fix this. Like I was a problem solver in every environment I was in, except for my marriage. And just
Well, the
kidding. All
common
right.
the common denominator, like you keep saying, and people we do this. People do this. Kept saying, I could fix it. I could do it. I can make it. I could build it. It wasn't you at all. It was
No,
your gifting and your talent, but that was given to you by God. And
you're
everything we do, we ought to do unto the glory of God. But it was God doing it through you. And sometimes, yeah, we get caught up because we go to certain levels and accomplish certain things. We forget how we got there. And yeah, sometimes God knocks us down or allows us to be knocked down, so that He can get us back on track with Him, because that's what it's all about. As you know, it's all about with Him. You mentioned your daughter. Was it Fiona that
Ellie, my youngest
okay.
Ellie. But yeah, you do know
Okay.
my daughter
Yeah,
Fiona.
Fiona's running track right now. She's a hurdler right now. She's a beast right now. Are you coaching her?
Yes, she is doing great. So she's national champion in
Wow.
what year is it? 2022. Yeah, last year. And then this year, she was sixth and eighth in the 100 hurdles and 200 hurdles.
Wow. That's awesome. I was listening to you talk about how sometimes it's difficult to figure out whether you need to be mom at this point or whether you need to be coach at this point. How's that going for you?
Oh, with a moody teenager? Great.
Yeah. Well, you were
My
once a moody teenager.
Wait, I might still be now. My best way to coach her this year, she did get. I mean, which I think every athlete. Well, I don't want to put this on every athlete, but she experienced a lot of success last year,
Hmm.
and did have a sense of, well, I know how to do this now. And I was like, okay, you think you do, and so there was a
Sounds
bit of that for us this year where I realized okay, I think I know how I'm going to coach her. So I started to run track again. And I actually competed in the Masters National Championships and we broke an American record. And I had 2 months to get ready. Uh, and it
okay.
was great though, because I would show up to train and she's like, I don't necessarily want to run with you because I would train with her because there's not anyone else that's fast enough. And she is faster than me now. And I'm like, I'm not faster than you anymore. Um, but she could see my work ethic and she is driven, like it's in her. If someone else, like she just wants that. And so she was like, it's tired, or I'm tired, it's hot, whatever that looks like. um, Instead of responding to her, I would actually just start running again, and then she would just get up and start
Okay.
doing it again. So it was very visual and action driven.
Right.
And I've
And
trained like this since Nebraska. I train in any weather, in all circumstances, because I think you should be prepared for any scenario. And I had a coach from Russia, and he told me, Maggie, if today was Big 12 championship. Would you run? Because it was snowing. Okay, Irving, we were in Kansas City and it was snowing sideways.
Wow.
And I was trying to get out of running. And he goes, okay. And I said, well, yeah, victors. He goes, okay, if today was national championship, would you run? I said, well, yeah, victors. But he goes, okay, then today you run and every day you run like champion. And so
Paul
I
said,
ran,
run to win the race.
I ran with snow pelting my eyes in my full windsuit,
Wow.
and it was actually probably one of the best gifts he could have given me, because even going forward, when the rest of our team went indoors or whatever that looked like, we stayed outside and we trained like that. And now Fiona
Wow.
trains like that. So if
Wow.
we're ever in uncertain weather, it doesn't shake her and it doesn't shake me, because we just live prepared, right? So
And you can win. I preached a sermon entitled this. You can win in bad weather. You can still win in bad weather. It doesn't matter what the weather is. You just push forward and you can still get the victory. If you all haven't figured it out yet, Maggie is a woman of faith. She loves the Lord. She's a Christian lady. God bless her. She's our sister. Those of us who are Christians, she is our sister in the faith, child of God. She is a national motivational speaker. She goes around telling people never give up. I'm getting ready to give you a chance to do your thing now. Never give up, and no matter what, pursue your dreams, no matter what life throws at you. And no one can speak. People who speak on topics like that can't speak on topics like that, or don't speak on topics like that had they not been through something. So Maggie has been through it in her life, just like we all do. Jesus said, you shall have tribulations. Nobody escapes trouble. Nobody escapes pain. Nobody escapes problems. We all have to go through our own individual challenges in life. It's just how you respond. And a part of that response has to be, you cannot stop. You cannot quit. You cannot give up. Maggie, tell the people what you do and your message in that. Because again, you've had your challenges. You've had good times. You've had some challenging times. There was a time when you were totally stopped. It took you a whole year to get yourself back on your feet and get going again at a competitive level. Talk to the people and tell them about how you feel about this challenge to never give up.
never give up was something that during my brain injury recovery, I actually hated it. And I try not to use that word, but everybody's like, you're such a positive person. You can get through anything. Never give up. And I was like, oh, if I hear that one more time. But that was during the time when I realized it wasn't just about saying never give up anymore. It was about becoming never give up. And you saw I wear a pink bow when I compete.
Right.
And what that represented for me is that little piece of us when we're younger that thinks anything is possible. I want to be a superhero, whatever that looks like, whatever that dream is, and school and all the people in our life tell us anything is possible, is that holds true forever. It is, no matter your circumstance, no matter your obstacle, you can overcome, you can see opportunity, not opposition, have a clear vision, and become what you say. So I had to learn to become, never give up. And that has just been pivotal. That is the piece of it that after I retired from the show, after a brain injury, I actually came back to compete 2 more seasons and become a top competitor again. And it was with an entirely different mindset than I've ever had as an athlete. And even though in some ways physically I was weaker, I was the strongest whole that I'd ever been in my entire life. And that's because a big part of me was healed. And I also was a little wiser on taking risks on obstacles.
So you don't just say to people, never give up. You are never give up. You are
We
never give up.
all are.
Yeah.
Live it, breathe it. I am not a fearless person. That's everybody's like, oh, I'm not like you. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Someone that had nothing set on the table for her and every obstacle possible in front of her, and just you, it's not failing, it's falling forward. And if we just allow ourselves even a little bit, if we're willing to be uncomfortable, your life will unlock itself. It's amazing. I mean, and it doesn't mean that you're going to become an American Ninja Warrior or, go on to the NFL or whatever that looks like. If there's just a little part of yourself that's willing to be uncomfortable, you'll be so surprised at what's possible.
That's the keeping. I preached this a while ago too. That's the keeping the faith even when you fail, because we're not perfect. We will make mistakes. We will fall short, but we still have to continue to believe. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us fighting. That keeps us from quitting, because when you quit, when you stop, that's when progress ceases. That's when progress ceases. Yeah.
And if you know your why behind it and your purpose, because everyone else will have a reason for you of why you shouldn't. And those are actually easier
Right.
to get past typically.
Right.
But when you have to answer you and your why is so big, you're able to answer yourself, you move forward with so much strength.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, we're out of time, but that's okay, because that just gives me a reason to bring you back. Are you competing still now? I mean, currently, are you competing? Is there something that we can look forward to here in the next few months?
I'm actually back at track, going to be trying to break some more American records, and I'm going to try to hurdle again at 42 and see what I can do.
Get out of here. So what competitions are you going to be running in?
So I travel actually to the nationals and world track meets for USATF.
Okay.
I compete as a part of a team that's actually based out of California, but I run with them, and we meet up, and it's a very different world. I train on my own, which is a little typical for me, maybe a place of comfort, but I'm excited about that, just to branch out into that part of it. At some point, I imagine, and it's in me, I want to do a competition that pushes me very uncomfortably, and I don't know what that is yet. I told Ricky, I'll close this out. My dream is like Rambo. I want to have someone throw me out of a helicopter with a buck knife, and I just want to see if I can. This is a legitimate bucket list item that I want to ice skate to Madonna like a prayer. Like, I mean, I just have these things in my life that need to happen.
We're going to call you Rambina. You not Rambo, Rambina. You're going to be Rambina. No, go ahead.
I haven't found what that is yet, but it's in me.
And then look, you tried to be Rocky, because in some of your training, you were chasing chickens, I heard.
I did. Wow, you did a deep dive. Chickens are very difficult to chase.
You run around chasing chickens and for your training for the Ninja Warrior competitions.
I'm going to bring a chicken to the venue, and for your 61st birthday, we're just going to try to chase it.
Listen, I don't want to I'm 61. I can't be pulling no hamstrings chasing around no chicken. Now, understand this. My last name is Fryar. I do eat chicken. So I'm a chicken man, but it's spelled AR, not ER. I'm not the chicken. I'm the chicken. I'm the fryer. I'm not the fryer. I'm the fryer.
That's good. That's good.
I eat the chicken, but listen, I look forward to seeing you next week. Great talking with you. Great story. I look forward to having you back on the show again. Maybe after we see you run a few times, because the wife and I, we watch track and field. She's a former 400-meter hurdler. She went to college on scholarship, as a 400-meter hurdler. So she's very interested in what we're talking about right now. And I promise you, when you see her Thursday next week, she's going to be talking to you about hurdling.
I can't wait.
Yep. So listen, God bless you. just keep up the great work. We never even got into some of the things that you're the CEO of. Was it Joyflow? CEO is it Joyflow company? Yeah, we'll get into all that the next time. Where can people find you? What's your Twitter and your Instagram and your Facebook handles?
Yeah, if anybody goes to MaggieThorne.com, MaggieThorne.com, or on Instagram, I'm at NVR_GVUP, which spells never give up.
Never give up. Right. But if they go to MaggieThorne.com, they can get all of that. All of that's on the MaggieThorne.com.
I love connecting with people.
I need to talk to you about that when I see you, how to get my stuff together like that too. I'm trying to organize my life. Social media is important. We got to keep it all in order and make sure we get the story told the right way, you know? Maggie,
great.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you Thursday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, give me a hand applause for Maggie Thorne. God bless you, sister. We'll see you next week. All right. Thank you. Hey, y'all. That was a great show. That was a great guest. As always, I told you, I don't mess around with y'all. I give you good stuff. We have great conversations that are fire. The accomplishments in life, the things that people have accomplished, and the challenges that come along. So we hear about the challenges and the triumphs that follow. No test, no testimony. Always got to have a test so you can share your testimony. Let people know that, yeah, I've been through this too, and you can come out on the other side on top. Better, bigger, wiser, stronger, more prepared. That's it today for the Fryar Place. I want to thank everybody who was on with us today. Brian Ingram. What's up, B. Ingram? What's going on? Richard Melton, Hope. Who else? Rodney Lewis, Pastor Taylor. God bless you. Keenan Harmon. I didn't know all of y'all were on. And Vinny Capriati. Some of y'all were on and you left. But thanks for being with us today. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place, same purpose. Conversation that is fire. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next week. God bless you. We're out of here. Thank you, Maggie Thorne.